I think you're ready, huh? Everybody got quiet. I'd like to call this meeting of the Buckeye Board of Education to order. This is Tuesday, October 9th. We're a little late this evening. I apologize for that. It is 7:16. Roll call, please.
Burko?
Here.
Copeland?
Here.
Master?
Here.
Kaburki? Here. And Scott?
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag proclaimed to up high.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission statement of the Buckeye Local Schools is to empower students to excel in a highly competitive society. The meeting agenda statement. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Approval of minutes. Recommend that the Buckeye Board of Education approve the minutes for the special and regular meetings of September 11th, September 14th, and September 24th, 2018. A motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any questions or comments about those minutes? Roll call.
Burko?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Kaburki?
Yes.
Master?
Abstain.
Copeland?
Yes. The following are recommendations that have been identified for approval as part of the consent agenda for this meeting. If a board member wishes to remove any item from this agenda for further discussion prior to taking action, please let either the superintendent or board president know. We do have a couple of things that we moved around.
Under the superintendent's recommendation, we have a new item K and L, and we changed the L to M. And then under new business, in item number 2, we removed policy 4162.
Thank you. Recommend that the Buckeye Board of Education approve the consent agenda of October 9th as presented. We'll entertain a motion. Second? Second. Roll call.
Mason?
Yes.
Kaburki?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Burko?
Yes.
Copeland?
Yes. Superintendent's special guests.
We have our recognition of our students of the month. If our administrators could come forward and introduce our students.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Nackman from the Buckeye Intermediate on the side over here. This is Aiden Smith. He is our 4th grader from Mrs. Ramsey's class, and Mrs. Ramsey nominated Aiden for these very reasons. Aiden is a very hardworking student and comes to school every single day ready to learn. He is always actively engaged in the lesson and contributes to the lesson in any way that he can. He will help others that need it, and he will not expect anything in return. Aiden is happy and shares a smile with everyone all day. There it is. One of his greatest features is that Aiden always takes the time to make sure everyone is included. He will go out of his way to make somebody else's day better, and his positive attitude is admired by his classmates and teacher daily. Keep up the great work, Aiden. You are a true role model for others. Congratulations.
But this is just one of the many reasons I love Buckeye. Mrs. Bevington, Max Ardito's 2nd grade teacher, had this to say. This year we had several students who are new to our district. I chose Max as our student of the month of September because he was a great friend to the new students. He invited the boys to sit near him at lunch and went out of his way to include them during group activities. Max really helped our new students feel welcome in our classroom. Keep up the good work, Max. And I will get Max his special gifts. Thank you.
I'm standing in for Mr. Flood tonight very proudly because the student of the month from Buckeye Junior High is from T1 and I'm a teacher on T1. And our student of the month is Carter Burgess. Carter is the Team 1 student of the month. He is responsible, caring, and kind. Carter gets work done in the classroom, participates in class activities, and is helpful to others both in the classroom and throughout school. He has a positive attitude, and he always strives to do his best in everything he does. Carter also has a good sense of humor, which he uses appropriately with friends and teachers to lighten the day and make things fun. Carter is the oldest of 4 brothers and said that he helps at home with his younger brothers. He loves living in the neighborhood where he does so that he can play with his friends outside. Carter also said that he is thankful and blessed to have a mom who does such a good job of taking care of him and raising him right. Carter's favorite sports are baseball and basketball, and he really looks up to Jackie Robinson. He explained that he wears number 42 when he plays sports because he believes that Jackie Robinson is the person who made it possible for everyone to play, and thinks in sports are equal for everyone. In his free time, Carter likes to play video games and hang out with his friends. He loves dogs, especially his mini schnauzer named Lucy. Carter said that in school he's best at math, and when he grows up he wants to play baseball at Ohio State and then go on to be a sportscaster for ESPN. This is Carter.
Good evening. One of our students of the month, Elizabeth Whetstone, couldn't be here with us this evening because she has a varsity volleyball contest that probably just started about 5 minutes ago. So she's got another engagement to be at this, and she asked if she can kind of do double duty, and I told her just go to the game. Elizabeth is a senior at Buckeye High School. What makes her school experience a bit unique is last year she spent time studying abroad in Brazil, where she became even more fluent in Portuguese. Elizabeth is an active member at BHS, where she participates in volleyball, student council, SAD, student leadership board, and mock trial. Her inclusion in mock trial last year, she was so influential within the team, she actually earned the Best Witness Award, which is a fairly impressive competition for the mock trial, as it's a state competition. She takes a challenging curriculum with numerous AP offerings, including AP Calculus, AP Government, AP US History, CCP Chem 1 and 2, just to name a few things. Outside of school, she's active in 4-H, Junior Fair Board, Junior Leaders of Medina County, and a host of other activities. If I can sum Elizabeth up in one word, it would be positive. She's one of the most positive young people I've ever been around in my time in education. She's always happy to be in school and looking to impact the school and the community in any way possible. So congratulations to Elizabeth, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight. Our second student couldn't come up with an excuse, so Mason, come on in. I asked him if he had a job, and he said no. His mom's trying to get him to get one, and he doesn't really want to. Mason is our other student of the month being recognized this evening. Mason is also a senior here at Buckeye High School and an integral part of our boys soccer team, which yet again just won another PAC championship here this week. Congratulations, Mason. That's awesome. Mason was selected as a senior captain this year by his peers and his coaches, which is a great reflection of how his peers see him as a leader both inside the program and probably outside the program as well, in the hallways as a leader in our building. Mason was a district finalist last year for the Hustle Award, demonstrating his fierce competition and his dedication to his sport, leaving it all on the field at all times, which I think is every coach's dream. He is a member of our National Honor Society, Heat Club, and Chess Club, and I've challenged him to a match as soon as that club starts up this year. I'm not good either. Don't take my role. Mason takes a challenging curriculum as well, taking advanced calc, CCP Comp 1 and 2, and Spanish 3. And if I had to give a compliment to Mason, he's a happy guy. Walking through the halls on a daily basis, you see Mason smiling, joking with his peers, joking with his teachers and his principals. And in today's day and age, when we're so worried about getting to the next class, the next accomplishment, the next grade, Mason always takes the time to talk to the people that he's around, which is a skill that we sometimes lack. So Mason, thank you for being a man for others and representing our school so well.
Next up, we have recognition for our Advanced Placement Scholars. Mrs. Kolar will be presenting.
Good evening. This evening, we would like to recognize those students who are taking those challenging courses at the high school and scoring extremely well on those, and they deserve to be recognized. The College Board recognizes students at various levels for their achievements on these tests. Students take these tests at the end of the school year and score anywhere from a 1 to a 5. If students score a 3, 4, or 5, they are given college credit. And of course, like I said, the 5 would be the highest score, and I will recognize a couple of students tonight who have scored 5s during their time here at Buckeye. So the first group we're going to recognize are AP Scholars. In order to be recognized as an AP Scholar, students have to receive scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams during their time in high school. I'm just going to name off the names. If you're here, please come up and then we'll kind of do a group photo. Does that sound good? All right. I know Isabella Allen, she could not be here. She has since graduated, but her family is here to accept it on her behalf. Well, I do have a certificate, and I would like to also, if you would like to share, what is Isabella doing now since she has left Buckeye?
She is majoring in mechanical engineering at the University of Akron.
Excellent, excellent. How about Josh Brown? Now, Josh is currently a senior. What would you like to share about maybe where you're planning to go to college with all of this AP knowledge? Akron, any idea of the major?
Bachelor.
Excellent, excellent. Sienna Bernheimer, is she here this evening?
Graduated.
She's graduated, okay. And like I said, we extended the offer to the families, and if the parents could come, we welcome them. So yeah, she has since graduated. Justin Kennedy also has graduated, and I don't believe that his family is here to accept on his behalf, and they will be sent. Grace Conrad. Is her family here? No. Okay. She has since graduated as well. I would also like to point out that Grace received a 5 on her English language AP exam, so that is a huge accomplishment. Greg Dobson, who has also graduated, is his family here on his behalf? Adam Culver, he has graduated as well. Michaela Ferry, who is currently a senior.
She's just not here.
She's not here as well. All right. One of these times, I'm going to give them a wrong certificate. How about Sarah? Sarah Pope. Okay. She is currently a senior at Buckeye. How about August?
I'm actually.
What are your plans?
I'm going to major in environmental science. So.
Do you know where yet?
No.
That's okay. You got this year, right? Excellent. How about Ben Mullins? Okay. Isaac Pratt. He is currently a senior with us, and I want to recognize Isaac for receiving a 5 on his U.S. history exam, which is awesome. How about Neil? Neil, would you please share perhaps your future plans?
I'm thinking about studying aeronautical engineering at the university.
Excellent, thank you. How about Sarah? Is Sarah here this evening? Which one? Zemer's on. I'd also like to recognize Sarah for receiving a 5 on her AP US History exam as well. Sarah, would you like to share?
Probably going for environmental science at Cleveland State.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. Give them a round of applause. Who did I miss? Well, that's a different category, so. Okay, yeah, sorry. Okay, the next category that College Board gives out an award for is AP Scholar with Honor. To receive this level of recognition, a student has to receive an average score of at least 3.25 on all of the AP exams that they've taken over their course of high school, and they must receive scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more of those exams that they have taken. And we have a student here, hopefully here tonight. Anthony Thompson, are you with us this evening? I really felt like with as many people. I was feeling like we had all these minutes here. Even though Anthony is not here, I do want to point out that he received a 5 on his AP Calculus exam. So, yes, there you go. So we had one student that received that honor. We have one student that received AP honor with distinction, AP Scholar with distinction. Students receive an average score of a minimum of 3.5 on all AP exams taken, and they have to have received scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more of their exams. I am so excited to say that this student's average score was a 4.2. Received 2 5s, which was AP Calc and AP Physics, and this student is Alexander Nemamo. Wonderful accomplishment to all of you, and to even the students that are not here this evening and those that are in college. We're so thankful to have these courses offered here at Buckeye, and I'm just so grateful that you guys can be here.
Could Alexander share his plans?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I got out of the group.
I'm not entirely sure yet, but probably something like aerospace engineering. And I don't know the college yet. I'm applying for lunch.
Very nice. Thank you all very much for this. Okay.
And he just picked out constellations, the stars, the planets, just amazing numbers, physics and space.
Very nice. And I'm wondering if I might see some of you back up here next. Well, you might have to come back. But I would imagine some of you will be named AP Scholars again next year. So I look forward to that. Thank you so much.
At this point in our meeting, we'd like to take a small standing break so we can take some photos of the students who have been recognized. So let's do that. Just a short All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's call this meeting back to order, and we are ready, I believe, for the treasurer's report.
You are. So first is just the normal stuff. Recommend that the Buckeye Board of Education approve the treasurer's report as presented, including all internal budgets, amended certificates, and appropriations to the county auditor as on file in the treasurer's office. Appendix A, which you guys have, and it was very light this month for your financials. You were enjoying that since you had a lot of material to read for the 5-year forecast, I'm sure. The next item here is the approval of the 5-year forecast. And every October, May, I come to present this. So we're just going to get started. The purpose of it is that in October and May, the district's required to file a 5-year forecast with the Ohio Department of Education. And actually that's changing to November and May because October is hard to solidify some of your staffing changes, contract negotiations and things. So we're hoping that if we can, the recent legislation taking effect November 2nd of this year allows us to then file by November 30th. So next year we'll be doing this in November and May. And it should allow for a little bit more stabilization of the information coming to you because as you have heard many times and we'll hear again tonight and futuristically is this forecast is as good as today at 7:50 p.m. and it will change by tomorrow and the next day and the next week and the next month as different information comes available to us for whatever reason. It's 3 years of actual history and then it's 5 years of projections. The projections are based on assumptions known at the time. And they're just a snapshot of where we are right now and where we may be come 2023. And one of the differences between the forecast and the actual results at times can be material and impact future forecasts. So it's important to kind of get to see this and know it. The important notes is this forecast only includes general fund revenue and our emergency levy revenue. It does not include any kind of revenues or expenses generated from countywide sales tax funds, the bonds, which is our debt service, permanent improvement are excluded. It also excludes federal, state, local grants, any student activity funds, food service, and athletic funds. So this is strictly basically levy tax dollars, where they're coming from, how much we're getting, and expenses that are being paid out of those. No assumptions, and this is important because it's coming closer and closer. There's no nexus assumptions in this because to date we have nothing certifying any revenue amount from the county auditor. I'm sure many of you have seen it in the paper. I know the Gazette had put out figures and PFR, a consulting firm down in the Columbus area has been trying to give us some information and data to go on, but nothing has been certified, so right now we can't put it in there. Our understanding is the best time frame would be a collection of 2020. Because if they have, depending on when gas flows through that pipeline. So gas, that could change if gas is not flowing in by the end of the year. So revenue versus expenditure. This is just a chart to show you, taking the forecast, putting it into a chart. The blue line is our revenue, so you can see they're flat, a little bit of an increase, and then kind of flat line. And you'll see the expenses projected to increase as the cost of goods and services continue to rise as inflation rates. So that's at about a 2% incline. And then the cash balance you can see is going down. And when you look at this downward trend, you're going to see that this axis where it's all combined is about where deficit spending starts, and that's where you're starting to spend more than you're collecting. However, you have a cash balance to kind of cover that. So this is important just as a graph to see where we'll be through the period of the 5 years. Ending cash balance, true cash in the bank. You need to have a 30 to 60 cash balance as the minimum target to have at the end of the year, and no less than 0 is required by Ohio law. So we are able to match that. That is the fantastic news about this forecast, is we're able to get the 30 to 60 days, but we're right there. So we're going to look at some financial challenges past 2023, depending on how everything is determined over the next several years. Your estimated general fund revenue sources for last year, with fiscal year 18, would be July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. So, my percentages don't show up. The green, this represents real estate taxes, and that is 54% of our total revenue. So that is quite a bit. Other local will come in here at 8%, and other state comes in at 13%. And the blue is the state foundation or state aid that you hear for every student, and that is 25%. So all combined, our state sources is 38% of our income, and our local sources is 61%. So we are heavily reliant on our community to fund our school system. So we rely on local share to get us through versus state share. And there's something called the state share index, which I don't want to bore you on, but that's the amount you actually get of the $6,010 per student. So we only get 28% of $6,010. So we don't get the full amount from the state aid based on your state share index. The wealthier the state believes your district is, the less state share you get, so the less they will give you. The more impoverished the state rates your district, the more your index goes up and the more you would get out of that money. So our state share is a significant source. The state of Ohio share is a significant source of funding, but certainly our main part is on the local side. And the current state budget continues us on a guarantee. And the guarantee is the whole state funding formula is very complicated. But this year, we are a guarantee district, meaning the formula would not have given us as much revenue as past years. So they're guaranteeing us that level of funding for this year only, because in July, we have a new budget starting at the biennium. So July 1st, so in June, we should know where we're going to be at for the next biennium. This forecast in particular has 2 bienniums. So we're talking about, and we have a governor change coming up, so it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen at the state level for funding for schools. Local versus state, this kind of just reiterates what I just said. The state will not be a growing partner to our funding long term over these 5 years. Our local share would have to be our partner here on this because of what the state's doing. Major contributor to the loss of state funding was the TPP replacement funding, which we're still getting a little bit, but that's been phased out, which is tangible personal property tax. Most importantly, I think for the purpose of this evening is to understand that our state share does not fund us at 50%. So we rely heavily on local. Operating revenue, I have projected the state funding to be flat because there's 2 bienniums and I have no way of knowing what they might be doing. The May forecast will probably have more modules out and more simulations to figure out what the state funding might be. Preliminary information is to plan on nothing or a 10% reduction in state funding. I don't know what that will look like though long term. And when Nexus's valuation comes on our books, that will also change how much we will get because your valuations will go up and then your state share index will go down. So there's a lot of things that are connected into this that are unknown to us. I would anticipate the guarantee phase down for us, meaning I don't know that they're going to keep that guarantee long term. So if we go on a formula funding district, we could be looking at less state aid, depending on how that works out. Our assessed values are expected to continue to increase due to the economy through FY22, and we're up for I think the complete evaluation is 19. I think our reevaluation was 16. So we'll be looking at another set of evaluations from the county auditor's office. Again, the amount of the pipeline is unknown, and if we collect all the local taxes we estimate, then we're looking at some security for a period of time through this. The general fund expenditures, those, again, my percentages. Our wages is the big red one, and that's at 57%. Our benefits are 22.2, which is purple, or maroon, purple. Then the orange is 14%, materials, which is 2.5%, capital 2.5%, and debt is essentially 0, other is 2.5%. So our wages and benefits, the take-home parts of this slide is truly wages and benefits are 79.3% of all of our expenditures. State average is 74.78, so we're just a little above the state average with that. General fund expenditures by object, and object is the accounting codes of how we classify things. The costs are expected to rise, so I'm sorry some of these things didn't turn out in the PowerPoint. The red is the wages, the blue is the benefits, services, material, capital, and other, just to give you an idea. So you're going to see that again, everything will be increasing, which is why in the very basic bar graph you saw our expenditures outpacing revenues. So in summary, where we are right now, 2 state bienniums in this forecast, very hard to predict what's going to happen with those. No new state funding in current state budget due to increased property value reflecting we are a wealthy district, which I covered with the state share index. Local tax collections are increasing. With the veteran economy, the county auditor tends to actually collect and not have as much delinquency tax income. In the short term, we're going to keep an eye on the pipeline developments and see how that will go with monitoring taxes and revenue in relation to value. And the deficit spending is still projected to start this school year at some point, depending on what happens and how things go. So that is the presentation on the forecast. Any questions? With that great and exciting, invigorating information, I see everyone is excited. Anything from?
I think it's important for folks to note that the Nexus pipeline, even though it will provide money to the school district, the state will reduce the money that we get based on us getting money from the pipeline. And I don't think that that's something that the community maybe is aware of yet, that we will be reduced for state aid.
So you might have 1 year where the first year might be at estimated amount, but then it will affect your valuation, which will affect your future years. So the net gain of the pipeline is very unknown. And not something I would probably count on for a while.
Any questions from the others?
Okay, thank you.
I need a motion to approve this treasurer's report and the 5-year forecast.
Motion.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Stoll,
Yes.
Berco,
Yes.
Mattson,
Yes.
Savarchi,
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes. Public participation. The public is invited to speak to any of the agenda items and other school topics. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Direct questions will not be answered by the Board of Education members at this time. However, answers will be given at a later date as appropriate. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? All right then, superintendent's informational items.
Thank you. First up, we have Dr. Christina Collins and myself presenting our state report card. And unlike the information that Mrs. Knapp gave us, this is guaranteed to be the same scores throughout the entire school year. There's no fluctuating in our numbers. So what does the report card mean to Buckeye? First of all, it is considered as one measure that we are using to identify the success or the challenges that we are facing as a district. It does compare to other schools, of course, because everybody puts their scores out, and there's a lot of articles written about how schools compare looking at the various assessment areas and student populations. For the most part, the individual student data that we receive is consistent with what we see in our individual classrooms and teacher-driven assessments, and so that's encouraging for us to be able to identify that there is a correlation with some of those scores. And we use our information, not the state information, but we use our assessment data to help inform our instruction, to identify student needs, and to help identify how best to allow our students to be successful. So this information we aren't able to use as fluid as that information, but it does provide us with other information. One of the things we talked about when we were putting this presentation together is, so what happens when we get all A's? You know, is this information now become not as important to us? Have we reached that pinnacle and there's nothing else to do? No, because it's still giving us a snapshot of what is actually happening. And typically what happens when schools reach that pinnacle, they change the mark again. So the instruction is always a focus. The grade is not the focus, it's the instruction, and it's how we are progressing or not progressing in certain areas that we are measuring and assessing on a daily basis.
So last year we talked about, and this is the same slide from last year, we talked about how are we using the data. So there's only one main change from last year to this year, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But we do get the preliminary data in July, and then we comb through it. Our EBIS coordinator and I spend a lot of time in July looking for errors, making sure all of our students are accounted for, making sure we're taking credit for the correct students,
And we also take the time then to organize the data so that it can be used by our teachers. New this year, something we tried and it was pretty successful, and I look forward to doing it again in the future. In June, I sent out an email to all district staff asking anybody who likes to geek out about statistics and look at spreadsheets. I asked anyone who wanted to participate to come in and analyze the data. That's something that in the past I've really just hunkered down and done staring at the computer screen, but I thought this time let's do it with the group and let's see what the group comes up with. And we had about 10 teachers and administrators who met, and I have to give a special thanks to Sue Abraham and Dave Binkley, who we divided up the work and we all took on the spreadsheet. It's like 9,000 rows of information, and so we were all able to go in and play with it and do the analysis. Once the more concrete letter grades come out in August, that's when we start to look for trends, and we expect that data to start being cleaned up by that point. So we start asking those questions. Where do we see success, what are the trends over time, and what areas are continuing to struggle. The report card has a new look to it this year. Mr. Morgan's going to talk about what each of these areas means.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the report card, remember they changed the philosophy of what the letter grades mean. Now C is what is determined as being, met expectations. And not that doesn't mean we're not striving for an A, but you'll notice if you see any comparison of where districts are falling, there are not a lot of numbers of districts that are falling in the A category or the B category. It's still heavily flowing down towards the C and the D range. And so remember, grades aren't what drive us on this. It's actually the information behind it, but we did want to identify that the district overview with the district grade to see this is the first time that we have been evaluated as an overall district score. And so that is a new component to this year's report card. When you look at the 6 areas that are below, you see our scores for our grades for this year. Just to kind of remind you that the achievement is basically how many students pass the state assessments. The next category of progress you'll see is a 3-year value-added composite. So it's not just what happened last year, but it's based on what's happened the previous 3 years and how much growth our students have made over that those 3 years is their score that's compared across the state. The next column there is, or the box is the gap closing, and that's basically a 1-year value-added score to see how well student populations are expected to progress through their performance objectives. And then we have our graduation rate, which obviously is our graduation rate, and our improving at-risk K-3 readers. That is an area with the third grade reading guarantee, focuses on that, and students that are placed on RIMS that allow us to give intense intervention for those students. There's a lot of background to those scores, which we have to drill down to. It's not an easy answer to say that we're successful or not successful, just looking at the letter grade. And then the Prepared for Success is also a letter grade that identifies our students as they go beyond graduation and how there's different components of what their preparedness is as they move forward. The next click of the clicker will show you our scores compared to last year. So achievement and our progress remain the same. Our gap closing went from a D to a B. Our graduation rate maintained an A. We stayed at a C for our at-risk K-3 readers. And you'll notice it's weird when you look at some of these numbers and you see our Prepared for Success. Last year we were a C with a 53.4, and we actually improved our score, but we dropped the letter grade. And so there's always questions, and we have to drill it down deeper to find out, okay, what mathematical equation caused us to get what we got. That's
I may end up over there because I feel the need to point right now. But what I did this year was I took all, which one? It's okay, because I get excited and sometimes I have to point anyhow. So. But what I did this year was I took all of our data dating all the way back to 2013, so we could see over time how the scores have changed. Now the image here, for the sake of being able to fit on the screen, I only went back to 2015. And I hope that this is the last year that we have to talk about the changes from 2015 to 2016 to 2017 and now. On this screen, what you can see are our scores. You can see our indicators met across the top. And you'll notice last year, there were 24 indicators. This year there were 24 indicators. But hidden within that is the fact that last year there was an indicator for 4th and 6th grade social studies. There is no 4th and 6th grade social studies test anymore. So we stayed at 24 indicators by picking up 2 new indicators, one of which is retakes. So the number of kids that have to retake a test and to be proficient. The performance index is beneath that, and my arrow kind of hit it a little bit, but you'll see trend lines on each of these slides, and it will show you whether we're trending up, down, or staying the same. And here we are trending up. I do personally like to see this slow and steady growth because it is showing that there is constant progress and improvement happening to our instruction. So I do like to see that. There's the overall aggregate grades. Value added, where the 2 arrows are pointing. This is where I say that I hope this is the last year we have to talk about this. So in 2015, prior to 2015, that measure was based on a multi-year average composite score. In 2015, when we switched to the PARCC tests, it reset. So they did a 1-year grade. So you'll see for us, we took the PARCC on paper and in English and PARCC online in math. Science had no change. It was the same testing company. So for that year, that was the year that Buckeye, Cloverleaf, Black River, we all received A's, and Highland, Medina, and Wadsworth all received F's on that score. The following year, in 2016, we moved to an all-new testing company, and everyone had to be online that year. That year was also the year that Buckeye, Cloverleaf, and Black River all took an F, and Medina, Wadsworth, and Highland all took an A. So in 2017, we see 2 years calculated into that 2017 score. So we were maintaining that F because it hurt that first year. Whereas when you look at Medina, Wadsworth, and Highland, they're only hanging on to an A in that 2016 year at this point. So now in 2018, we still have an F because it is a 3-year composite, going back to that 2016 F. Again, Medina, Wadsworth, and Highland are going back to an A. So it has been harder for us over these last 3 years, with this score constantly being an average of that plummeting year in 2016, it has been harder for us to pull back up from that letter grade. The next line, the gap closing, the circled score, what's interesting is when you look at value added, that's a 3-year average, but when you look at our gap closing, it has a 1-year value added score in it. And when you look at just the 1-year value added, we're at a B. So those two are really, they're really not aligned with one another when you look at them that way. So I like to look at the 1 year. We are pulling up that value added score, and I really hope that since next year will be 4 years out from that first year of that plummeting letter grade, that we will be moving away from that at this point.
Just one clarification here. So gap closing is special populations?
Yes, but
value added is all populations?
Yes, but this gap closing has the special populations for value added this year. It's the first time we've ever had it. So for each subgroup that we have, multiracial, students with disabilities, all of our subgroup populations, we now have a 1-year value added component calculated in. So we've got, in gap closing, it's going to include their raw score performance and how many were proficient, but it's also including for each of those subgroups, did we hit a value added score or not? So we're seeing, and that across the board is showing green. That tells us that last year, for that 17-18 test, we are growing those students. Even with that F still hanging on, we are growing those students. This is a comparison of us against Wadsworth, Highland, Medina, and Cloverleaf. Really, again, just for sake of being able to fit everything on the screen here. You can see our indicators against the other districts' indicators. Luckily, we all have the same indicator bar this year, which is 80%, and it will be 80% from now on. You can see our performance index comparisons. Here I'm pretty proud because we are the 3rd in the county right now, just under Wadsworth and Highland. We need to keep working on that, and I do believe it's going to continue to progress the way it has over the last few years. You can see that value added over here. That's what I mentioned a few minutes ago, where you see Wadsworth, Highland, and Medina all with A's, because they are not hanging on to an F from 3 years ago. Their plummeting year was 2015. and that was a 1-year score. K through literacy, beneath that, and this is something that I think we really have to be proud of, our gifted performance index is the highest in the county, and you'll see it in a couple slides, we are serving a huge amount of our population now, and that has grown over the last few years, so we're really proud of our performance there. I'm going to go through these a little quickly. These are just the content areas, and what we're looking at here is the average improving over time? So here we can see our overall ELA trend is trending up. You may look at this though and think, okay, but in 5th grade, for example, well, that's not a good one. Let's look at 4th grade. It went from an 82.5 to a 79.6, that 5th grade. Why did it drop in scores? But what you have to look at, and these lines are a little light, you have to follow the kids. So when we look at that 3rd grade group, when they go from 3rd grade to 4th grade, yes, if you look just at 4th grade, it looks like, oh, okay, well, we dropped 3 proficiency points here. But when you look from 3rd grade to 4th grade, it's really in line. And across the board, as you go up and you look at that 5th grade, 68.4 in 2017, they went into 6th grade and they had a 69.2. So it's in line with their proficiency. And that is in line with our value-added 1 year being positive. This is saying that all of these kids are growing a year. Math, same thing. Overall trend, we're trending up. Science and social studies, these are trending up as well, as you can see on there. This is our gifted information, and this is where I wanted to point out our gifted, the students who are receiving services. So this one is smaller because I did go back to 2013 because we have increased our gifted services significantly since 2015. The state calculates its percent identified differently now, so it's not as easy to access, but we're pretty consistent right there with the 25% mark. However, when you look at receiving services, we went from, as reported to the state, the 0.2 in 2013 to 60% of our gifted identified students are currently receiving services in 2018, and that is huge. For us to be increasing our services that much and have those kids be scoring the highest PI in the county, that means we're identifying the right kids and they are growing like gifted students should. They are being appropriately challenged. And there's our trend line for that. That was huge, so huge I had to circle it. Students with disabilities also trending up. And this one's a little small. This is our Prepared for Success data. There are a few things here that I want to point out. So this is all of how are we preparing students for life after high school. The top is our points trend, and our points are trending positively. Your points are based on the number of students that you have. So we will always have less students in the high schools that have large graduating classes. So that's not as important as the other scores on here. So we're looking at 3 major things. Again, the points, are they trending up for us? The second thing is the AP exam score trend. And the third one is dual enrollment credit. So just a couple of things to point out with that. Here's our AP exam score trend. You can see that that is not where we want it to be. So there were a couple of things I wanted to point out, not to justify it, because we recognize it's an issue and we need to start improving it. However, we have added in the last 4 years 8 AP classes to our course load. With adding each of those courses, you're adding a new teacher. So all of our AP teachers, except for 2, are either 1, 2, or 3 years into teaching their AP classes. So it takes time for those teachers to make sure the rigor of their coursework is appropriately preparing kids for the rigor of the test. So I expect to see that changing starting with this year. And this is actually the class of 2017. I expect to see some changes when we see the class of 2018. The other thing I wanted to mention about this is we do not have prerequisites on our AP courses preventing students from taking them. So other districts may have where you had to take the prior course and receive a B or above and have teacher recommendation to take the AP class. We do not do that here. We say, if you want to try and you want to take this AP class and you want a rigorous course that we're going to offer you, try it and let's see how you do. So we are just, again, working on that rigor issue. And the last thing on this slide that I want to point out is our dual enrollment credit. Across the county, we're the second highest in our dual enrollment credit. Wadsworth is at 34.3, Highland 19.6, Medina 23, Cloverleaf is 3.9. This 30% that we have, and I say it I think every year, is because we have teachers, we have so many teachers at our high school that have a master's degree in their content area, and that is, I said it when I came here, it's unheard of that you see that. So that's just speaking to these teachers and what they're able to do.
So this slide is basically how do we align the report card to what our district focus is. And you'll see that this is the same slide as last year with the highlighted areas are things that we're looking at for new this year. So we look at it from a district perspective, which is our district leadership team, and from our building perspective, which is our building leadership teams. And basically we're looking at the continuum of services. That's to make sure that each student is receiving what they need to be successful every day, and that can look different for every student depending on what their needs are. You see on the further strategic plan, we are also completing our math adoption. We are beginning an ELA adoption. In our buildings, we are looking at possible staffing concerns as we continue to look at the co-teaching and the cluster grouping. And then we are still continuing with our max teaching strategies. And we have replaced data map with branching minds. And that is very similar to branching or data map, but branching minds also offers a quick access to interventions for each of our students. And then improving our response to intervention, we also have added RTI coaches this school year, which is going to be supporting our teachers and our students as well. And so really it comes down to our professional development that we are focusing on. We are looking at our steady and consistent progress, and we're always constantly looking to improve and challenge ourselves. We have many areas that we have a lot of pride in, and that we will continue to push forward. This is a quick snapshot from our perspective. We are expecting to have another presentation on November 7th at 6 p.m. at the Junior High Media Center, where we are hoping to go into greater depth in regards to what we are providing educationally across our continuum, as well as looking at some of our other strategic plan areas of finance, facilities, that type of thing. So more information will be coming out about that, but we also want to share a little bit deeper what we're doing here at Buckeye. Any questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Snook.
Mr. Snook.
My turn. You're up.
So I'd like to just thank the board real quick for providing the administrative team the opportunity to pick a month and highlight something that we think is really, really unique about Buckeye, and something that we really like about Buckeye. He told us to stick to 5 minutes, but I don't really like to follow the rules, so I'm going to try to keep it about an hour. And obviously, if I ask right now if anybody came to see me present, no one would raise their hand. So at this point, I'll break it. If I could have the 4 students that I asked to come to tonight's meeting to present something that I think is very unique that Buckeye allows our seniors to do. I'd like to have you guys come on up now, and we are going to present something kind of unique that the other districts I've been in, we've never had the opportunity to allow our seniors to do. And that is the really cool experience that seniors get to paint their parking spots. Which, if you've had the opportunity to drive through the high school parking lot, there are some really, really, really unique spots. And I thought that, looking at those myself, they really tell a story. So I'm going to move out of the way, and I'm going to allow the opportunity for the students to just briefly talk about their spots and what they mean to them.
So my name is Maddie Helwig, and I'm a senior at Buckeye High School. Like Mr. Snook said, this was a really unique opportunity, and I have friends and family members who didn't get to do this when they were seniors. So I knew that I wanted my parking spot to be something meaningful to me. But I also know that I am not the best at drawing, so I had to do something that was a little bit easier to draw. So I decided to make my theme like the story of my life because reading is a really important part of my life. I love to read and I grew up loving to read. So at the bottom I have this stack of books, and this is my family, my dad and my mom, and my sister Sammy, who is a junior. And then my book is like opening up to show all the important parts of my life. So I am a member of the varsity soccer team, so I have a soccer ball, and then my number 28. I lived on a sailboat with my family for 3 years, so boating is a really important part of my life as well. So I have this sailboat like kind of at the center. And then I have the graduation cap because that is my main goal for this year, is to graduate. And then my class year as well. And then Spider-Man, I just put his mask there because he's my favorite superhero. So this is just like showing who I am and everyone who has helped support me and allowed me to be who I am.
So I'm Sam Oliver, I'm also a senior. So with my parking spot, what was really important to me was family. I worked on this with my dad for about 9 hours. We have full-time lapse.
Which is cheating, by the way, totally cheating.
Totally cheating. All right. Well, so I did school colors because I've been going here ever since preschool, so it's kind of what I'm used to, what I like. Then I have the big graphic letters, which was really inspired by my dad. We own a sign company, so he worked out the details with me, how to design it, how to make it stand out. I think anybody who drives by would know that was my spot. Buckeye class of 2019, because I'm graduating this year. And then along the sides, I have different symbols that kind of like make up my life and represent me. So down here I have musical notes. That kind of represents my participation in like the musical programs at Buckeye. I was in Beauty and the Beast last year. I was Cogsworth. Here, this is a cross-country symbol because I'm a cross-country runner and I'm a captain this year. This is a microphone. So I participate in one of Buckeye's a cappella groups called R8p. And we perform many concerts throughout the year, so that's really important to me, singing. And then up here I have a cross, which represents like my faith, and church is a really big part of my life, so I included that as well. So that's what Parking Spot meant to me.
Tristan Johnson wasn't able to make it tonight, so he gave me a quick little write-up. So this is what Tristan would have said had he been able to be here. When first trying to come up with a parking spot plan, I had all of my interests jumbled up with no way to organize them. Then I saw the Monopoly board on the floor, and each spot quickly came to me. I called it Tristanopoly. I made one side dedicated completely to what I consider the best parts of my high school career: my participation in cross-country, musical, marching band, and the a cappella group and harmonics. The rest are purely just my favorite things. I'd like to thank the school board for allowing seniors to paint our spots, as by now, I don't care if people know I like Christmas too much. Being a senior really lets you show who you really are. Thank you. And you get an opportunity to see his spot. He has a number of different images on his spot that represent him. And Christmas is in there somewhere. I didn't see it.
Okay, so my name is Colleen Buckley, and I'm a senior as well. So for my parking spot, I decided to base it off of the Friends TV show, just because I have a lot of good memories associated with that. It's kind of weird, but I have a lot of memories with like my friends and even teachers as well. So I just have the Friends logo and then my name written, and then each Friends episode is titled The One With. So I decided to like start off my senior year, like the one with my senior year. And then I also have the New York City skyline, because I went on the New York City trip last year and I had one of the greatest times ever, and it's definitely one of my most fondest moments of high school. So it's kind of nice because although this doesn't have all of my interests like some of the other parking spots did, it does kind of capture a lot of the things for me. So every time I see it, like I think of all the good memories I have with my friends, with my teachers even in New York City. So.
Mine seems pretty lame compared to all of theirs. Mine's just an ace because I like to play cards with my grandma, and Allie goes with it. And I really like art, so when I heard we could paint on parking spots, I was really excited. And I wasn't sure when I was going to do it first, and then I realized it's a rectangle. Why not do a card? So here, did a card, and I really appreciate being able to paint it, and I hope that people can in the future.
Thank you. A really cool tradition that we started last year. We continued this year, and I hope that it continues for many more years to come. So I'll see you for our opportunity much as we see this year. Thank you.
Oh, and before we sit down, we just want to thank everyone for letting us do that, and especially Snooki Monster.
Pizza for you guys, good job.
We're all getting detention.
I enjoyed driving through the parking lot those first few days there when everybody's out painting it. You start to watch it develop, and it is amazing how many parents and friends are out there helping. Now, some of them are painting each other. I saw a lot of that going on. It's really good to see that the parents are involved in it too.
Just, I'm sure everyone's already also intention to expand the program next year. We're hoping to make it more of a community event, maybe bring a DJ in, have a little bit more of a fine time, some food trucks and things like that to invite more people to come to it, and also offering staff the opportunity to paint their spaces and behind the school to kind of connect them to the school as well. So we're taking what the seniors have done and trying to ratchet it up another step moving forward.
I had no idea what the presentations were.
What's that?
I had no idea what the presentations were going to be. I thought these 5 kids stayed here for the 5 to 20.
That was crazy. Oh, I'm going out.
Good job. Now you can smile.
Thank you so much, because you look at the spaces and think, oh, that's cool or that's nice, but to hear what's behind it is really important. So thank you so much. All right then, let's continue. You may leave.
Colleen, I do want to just thank you for making sure that we have the New York City trip on here. You commented on that, so that's good. Item B, OSBA conference is going to be November 11th to the 13th, 2018, and the board and Mrs. Nash and myself will be attending. Item C, a special board meeting has been scheduled on November 15th, 2018 at 6 p.m. The meeting will take place in the Board of Education Conference Room 304. I'm sorry, that's not accurate. That's going to be taking place at Litchfield Elementary. Sorry about that. You can see that was. Item D, November Board of Education meeting is been moved, not moved, but it's been scheduled for November 20th. It's not our typical second week due to us being at the OSBA conference. Item E, recognition of the Buckeye Schools' participation in National School Lunch Week, October 15th through 19th. This year's theme, School Lunch, lots to love, encourages students and school nutrition professionals to connect and share what they love about school lunch. Item F, recognition of the Buckeye Schools' participation in National School Bus Safety Week, October 22nd through 26th. National School Bus Safety Week is an active and evolving public education program and an excellent way for parents, students, teachers, motorists, school bus operators, school administrators, and other interested parties to join forces and address the importance of school bus safety. This year's theme is My Driver, My Safety Hero. And item G has been added as no school on Friday, October 12th, 2018 for staff development day.
Did you know the November 5th meeting?
I did not put that on, thank you. Just okay. So item H is we have a special meeting scheduled for November 5th, 2018 at 6 o'clock in the Buckeye Board of Education office. Thank you. Any other items to mention? Number 13, superintendent's recommendations. Item A, overnight field trip. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve an overnight field trip for the Buckeye High School students to New York. The 4-day trip is scheduled for April 2019. Exact dates will be determined by availability once permission is granted by the board. Estimated cost of the trip is $650 per student. There is no additional cost to the district. Appendix C. Item B, approval of agreement. Recommend the Buckeye Board approve the contract with Educational Funding Group Incorporated for consulting services for upcoming E-rate funding year 2019-20. A copy of the contract will be attached to board members' agendas as Appendix D. Item C, approval of DARE officer funding. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve the DARE officer funding for the 2018-19 school year. Appendix E. Item D, approval of Litchfield auction. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve Farnsworth Auction LLC to conduct the auction of the Litchfield Elementary Building. Appendix F. Item E, approval of MOU. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between the Buckeye Board of Education and the Buckeye Local Education Association for additional Rube Goldberg Club Advisors. Appendix G. Item F, approval of MOU. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between the Buckeye Board of Education and Alternative Paths, Incorporated for the provision of behavioral health services to Buckeye students. Appendix H. Item G, approval of MOA. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the memorandum of agreement between the Buckeye Board of Education and OPSI for the provision of on-the-bus instructor services, OBI, to Buckeye School bus drivers. Appendix I. Item H, softball field renovation. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve facility improvements to the softball field. Improvements include adding bullpens and a warning track to the existing softball field. Appendix J. Item I, approval of fundraisers. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the fundraiser sponsored by the Buckeye Local Schools Organization. Appendix K. Item J, photography service agreement. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve a 4-year photography service agreement with Light Touch for the exclusive rights to photograph the school programs and portraits. Appendix L. Item K, recognition of school sport. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the status change of the high school gymnastics team from a club to a school-sanctioned sport, effective beginning the 2018-19 school year. Item L, approval MOU. Resolve that the Buckeye Board of Education approve the memorandum of understanding between the Buckeye Board of Education and the Buckeye Local Education Association for the addition of gymnastics coaches. Appendix P.
I will take a motion for the superintendent's recommendations.
So moved.
A second? Second. Any questions on any of these items?
I would like to point out if anyone is interested in purchasing a school building, please show up.
Roll call, please. Barco?
Yes.
Safarki?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Copeland?
Yes.
Item M, final reading of the following policies. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the policies listed below as presented. Copies of the complete policies are attached to board members' agendas as Appendix M. Number 1, 5111, eligibility of resident, non-resident students. Item 2, 5112, entrance requirements. Item 3, 7530.02, staff use of personal communication devices. Item 4, 7543, utilization of the district's website and remote access to the district's network. And item 5, 8400, school safety.
A motion, please. Second?
Second.
Any questions on the final reading of these policies? Roll call.
Stahl?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Safarki?
Yes.
Barco?
Yes.
Copeland?
Yes. On to new business.
Item A, first reading of the following policies. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the policies listed below as presented. Copies of the complete policies are attached to board members' agendas as Appendix N. Number 1, 4121, criminal history record check. Number 2, 7530, lending of board-owned equipment. Item 4, 7542, access to district technology resources and/or information resources on personal communication devices. And number 4, 8600.04, bus driver certification. Item B, presentation of the 2019-2020 school calendar. Resolve the Buckeye Board of Education approve the 2019-2020 school calendar, front page as presented in Appendix O.
Personnel items.
Personnel.
It's just
Item A, certified personnel, recommendation of the Buckeye Board of Education, approve the following personnel items as presented. Number 1, contract changes, recommend that the Buckeye Board of Education approve the following contract changes for salary purposes for additional educational credits for the following employees effective October 1st, 2018 as presented. Item 2, K-12 intervention specialist for special education correction, recommend that the Buckeye Board of Education approve the payment to all the K-12 intervention specialists and school psychologists who have completed IEP training modules during the month of August 2018, not to exceed 6 hours at $25 per hour, to be paid from timesheet approval as presented. Item 3, extended family leave request. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education accept the extended family leave request from Justine Arafita, preschool teacher. Mrs. Arafita has requested a total of 12 weeks FMLA leave and will return to work on November 12, 2018. Item 4, family medical leave request. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education accept the FMLA request from Catherine Middlemas. Mrs. Middlemas has requested approximately 8 weeks and will return to work on October 4, 2018. Item 5, resignation. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education accept the resignation of Sarah Harrison, 5th grade teacher, effective October 1st, 2018. Item B, certified substitutes. Recommend that the Buckeye Board of Education approve the attached list of certified substitutes/tutors recommended by the Nevada County Schools ESC to work on an as-needed basis for the 2018-19 school year. A copy of the list is attached to board members' agendas as Appendix P. Item C, classified personnel. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve the following personnel items as presented. Number 1, employment. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve to hire Shannon Bodock, 3.5-hour elementary cook, effective October 10, 2018. Ms. Bodock will receive a 1-year probationary contract to be paid per the negotiating agreement at Step 1. Item 2, employment. Recommend that the Board of Education approve to hire Dean Zakar as a bus paraprofessional for the midday preschool bus route, effective October 3rd, 2018. Ms. Zakar will work from 11:10 a.m. to 12:20 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Item 3, employment. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve to hire Mary Cashew as the Athletic Department Secretary, effective October 10, 2018. Ms. Cashew will work 7 hours a day for 187 days a year and will be paid per the negotiating agreement contract at Step 4. Item D, classified substitutes. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve the following classified substitutes to work on an as-needed basis for the 2018-19 school year, pending the completion of all required documentation as presented. Item E, supplemental contract approval. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve the following supplemental contracts pending certification as well as resignations effective for the 2018-19 school year as listed. It was resolved by the Buckeye Board of Education that the board has offered the position to those employees of the district who are licensed and no such employee qualified to fill the position has accepted it. In addition, since no other qualified and licensed individual applied pursuant to ORC 3313.5, the Board of Education approves the following supplemental contracts for a non-licensed individual. All supplemental contracts will be issued based on state minimum participation guidelines.
A motion for these personnel items.
Motion.
Second,
I'll second.
any questions or comments? Roll call?
Stahl?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Barton? Yes. Stronghold?
Yes.
Item 16, volunteers. Recommend the Buckeye Board of Education approve the following volunteers, 6th grade camp parent volunteers as presented.
A motion to accept these volunteers.
So moved.
Second, roll call?
Parker?
Yes.
Barton? Yes. Stahl?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes. Board comments? Is there anyone who would like to start this evening? Any comments? None?
Thank everyone for coming. Appreciate it. Appreciate the presentations. AP testing, Alex, we need 3 5s next year.
No question.
That'll help that try
Any other comments? Is there a need for executive session? No? All right then, entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
roll call please. Parker?
Yes.
Manson?
Yes.
Varsity?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Lane?
Yes. Our meeting is adjourned at 8:40. Thank you, everyone.